We've got another very fascinating guest today. I'm a big fan of his. If you don't recognise his face, you'll certainly recognise his very distinctive voice. He's the voice of Scottish football, does a lot of rugby as well. It's Mr. Rory Hamilton. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, very well indeed. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a while since I've been doing this podcast. It's good. I'll be a bit out of practice, but I'll promise to do my best.
No, not at all, mate. Really appreciate you doing this. It's a real honour to actually talk to you, mate. So, on this channel, mate, we like to go right back to the start. You grew up in Helensburgh, I believe, and were you always a big sports fan?
You just cut off a wee bit there at the end, but yeah, grew up in Helensburgh. Well, went to school in Helensburgh. We actually grew up a little bit further around in Cove and Loch Long, so about 20 minutes away from Helensburgh, and then would sort of come in each day for school. Thankfully, my mum was a primary teacher as well at the same school, so she would drive us in until we were able to drive ourselves. But I did miss the second part of that question actually, because
that's all right. I was just saying, were you always a big sports fan?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, from since I can remember, and anything, honestly, like any sport, I would give it a go. I don't know. I was just always drawn into that sort of competitive environment. I think football and rugby were always the ones. They were kind of my main ones. But I mean, at school, I did everything that was on offer: athletics, cricket, football, rugby, canoeing, running, triathlons. You name it. If there was a chance, you know, they would say there's an after school activity and it involves sport, then I would do it.
So were you interested at that age to try and get into sport then?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I think when around the industry that I'm in now, it's loads of failed footballers and other sportsmen essentially. Because, you know, that sort of starts out as that's the dream, really, until you realise that the scouts aren't turning up to watch you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that. I think then now when you get into this, that you realise you've probably taken that path because it's your way of getting as close to maybe what your dream was, which would be to be running out on the pitch. But the way that I've started looking at it now is that that's not that it's a failed dream. It's that your attributes were better served elsewhere. So, you know, if I've got the ability to talk about it, to describe an event, then maybe that's what my sort of destiny was in it. It wasn't to be bent into the top corner, which, you know, I could do one in 100 times, but not enough. So I can talk about it.
What got you into commentary then? Was there a light bulb moment, or was there like your favourite commentator? Just to say.
I mean, I worked in the production side, TV, and then at Setanta. But really, I don't even think that I realised that commentator was a job, or certainly a job that you could go after, until really I was editing highlights for Setanta, and you had guys coming back from games and handing you the notes and telling you what should be included in the edit, and then you just looked at it and you go, well, these guys are going out every Saturday and commentating on a game, and you know there must be a way in. So I took Santa kind of going bust to give me an opportunity. You almost need that pressure to set yourself out being a freelancer, because you go away from having the security of a full-time job to right, I'm by the gig. How many can I fit in every week? Where can I diversify myself? That I've got a production background, so I can hire myself out that way. But how many production shifts are there? Okay, I'd like to be a reporter. I'll go and speak to the people that I know at Sky Sports News, and then so you maybe add in an extra 2 shifts a week, and then you say, well, you know, commentary's kind of thing that I want to do the most and probably feel have the best ability in. So then you maybe add a Saturday and a Sunday game doing that, and before you know it, you're up to 10 a week, and you're trying to fit them all in, and you're working until 2 a.m. on every Saturday night through your 20s, which it kills the social life a wee bit. But it probably allowed me to get to where I have now.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's 2 sliding door moments. The fact that you wanted to be a sportsman but didn't quite work out. Then you went to Satanta at that point, and obviously them going bust has helped you get into commentary and that. But was it always football that you wanted to get into, or were you always passionate about rugby as well?
Yeah, I ended up at the time during school. I actually had to give up on football because the team that I played with in Hillsborough, their games were at the same time as school rugby, and I didn't have the. I mean, if you were decent enough to be in a rugby team, then you sort of had to play. Didn't really have the option to be out of it. And to be honest, at the time, I enjoyed rugby as well. Probably preferred football, but it's just that way that I didn't really have a choice at that time, unless I'd gone to a really high level in football. Then you would sort of be able to get out of rugby. But yeah, I would say it was always between the two of them, and still now, it's just from a work side of things, I like having both. I think it keeps me more interested in each one, as so you're not just flooding yourself with football stats or rugby news. You've got a bit of something different to just to mix it up a little bit. And the same comes as a fan. I mean, I've been out to I follow Scotland everywhere from a football perspective. I've done since the early 2000s or 2004 or something like my first game. And the same with the rugby. I've been out to Rome, to Paris, to Japan, to the south of France, World Cup as well. It's just it's something I love doing, and following rugby or football, being a part of that is absolutely brilliant.
It'll definitely keep you busy anyway. Tell you that for nothing. The passport must be done. I read you.
Yeah, do you know that's funny? Wednesday, I'm going into the passport office because I've got to do one of the fast track ones because I got a 10-year one in 2020 and it's full. So I've filled it up in 5 years. I've got to replace it.
Corey, there's research. You've actually just delved right into his personal lifestyle with that one.
Yeah, but I mean, I know a wee bit too much. It's a wee bit.
It's like it.
Aye. Your commentary, people have said it's emotional and it's sort of I can't even remember that word now. Poetic, that was the word. Well, how would you describe your commentary style?
Yeah, I think emotional is how I would hope that it's portrayed, because I think it's really important that you try and connect with the people that are watching it, and make sure that, okay, if I'm doing I don't know, let me try to think. So him, the Scottish Cup final, the outcome doesn't matter to me, but the stories and you have to just try and put yourself in the shoes of fans that are watching it, because I think if it's not about you and what you want to happen, so I've always taken that, and I think you have to detach yourself from the fact that you are a football fan anyway. So if you take that completely out of it, and that's a lot of what the research is, or it's more getting your mind right and your mindset into seeing how other people are looking at this game and what it means to them, and you can very get up in it. Like I won't cite examples, but I've been in stadiums of the teams that I definitely support and never have, and I've felt it, and you can get behind that, because there's something about a football crowd, especially football crowds, that you can see just how much emotion is there for people. I think that I love about it probably more than anything else. The other word that you picked up was poetry. I don't know if my English teachers from school would agree, but I think that's the side. I think you've got there are some commentators that really have that knack, the English language, that their vocabulary is so diverse and poetic. You've got Peter Drury, Bill McLaren, probably the two best examples of that. I certainly wouldn't put myself in that bracket. I think I try and let my emotions drive it a little bit more. But it's interesting that Martin Tyler was one of the early guys that I got to speak to when I was at Sky, and he said to me, best piece of advice I can give is don't take on too much advice, which at the time I was kind of like, well, that's very contradictory, but what he was meaning was you've got your own, well, this is what I took from it anyway. He might contradict that, but he said, you've got to be your own man. It's natural. Because if I try to be Peter Drury or Bill McLaren or Martin Tyler or Ian Crocker, then you fail, because they're better at being them than anyone else. So you have to sort of develop your own style with it, I guess. That's quite the thing that's quite nice about commentary, is that there's no hard and fast rule for it. You can allow a little bit, not too much, but some of your personality to come through in it as well. And you look as well with the co-commentators that you work with, that they allow that, and you can sort of drive into their personalities as well.
Talking of co-commentators, obviously you've worked with some great commentators yourself over the years. You know, Alan McCoist, Michael Stewart, Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon. Is there anybody in particular you think that you click with the most?
I think they've all different attributes. I mean, I would say Michael and Stephen Craig, I'm mates with. You know, we'll go and have a round of golf, or we'll go up to the North Scotland Games and Mountains for a few days. So there's obviously there like a natural connection. I think Ali, I've never met anybody that can't get on with him. He's exactly how he comes across on air. And Chris is the other one that I worked with for a long time. And I think initially he was probably one of the ones that I was a wee bit more nervous about meeting and just seeing how it would go. But my first game at BT Sport, he was absolutely brilliant. And you end up traveling with these guys. So it's been Joe Hart this year with the game in the Champions League. And again, there was a guy that I realised quite early on that he recognised that he was coming into my domain, where I look at him as this guy that's got 75 caps for England, that's won everything with Celtic, with City, and has been around the world playing football, and you put that on a pedestal. But then when they're in a commentary, a broadcasting environment, they're the ones that don't have any experience, and they're trying to learn from you. So Joe was brilliant at that. I mean, he couldn't learn too much, just wanted to hear more and more about it and get feedback on how he was doing and all this kind of thing. So every one of them is really good to work with, but in their own rights.
Is there any behind the scenes stories that you're able to share with us?
I mean, the European trips are brilliant for all that kind of thing. The Rangers going to the final was magnificent, and I think I didn't really start to get those kind of things until I joined BT Sport, and I think the first game that I did was Zenit against Celtic, and Wow, that I mean, to go to, I've never been to Russia before. I love my travel, and that was somewhere I'd never been. So let me just say there were a few beers had after the game, and things got quite lively in a Russian ice hockey bar, but we all survived to tell the tale. And so yeah, but brilliant times, you know. And it's like going around Europe with mates and chatting about football. It's great fun. I do remember Chris Sutton stealing my bag coming back from Leipzig, and we were flying out to Berlin, and there's two different airports in Berlin. He was from the other one, and I was over the other side of the city. And we had this absolutely bonkers driver that ended up driving the wrong way down a cycle path, and there's bikes like flying off at the side and all this kind of thing. We're like, we don't know how to deal with this guy. I had my like school level German to reason with him, and he was having none of it. He was going into car parks, getting stuck, refusing to pay, to egg, all this kind of thing. And Chris was like, I can see my hotel. It's over there. I'm just getting, the next time he stops, I'm getting out and I'm going to do a runner. So he did that, and off he went, like hurried ahead to his hotel. And then, so I just said to the guy in my very broken German, you know, we only need to go to the other hotel, so don't worry about this one. We'll go to my one. And then, of course, when I get to my hotel, Chris has got my bag, and I'm stuck on the other side of Berlin. And I think I had to pay, it was something like €60 in a taxi each way, so I was 120 by the end of it. Chris is just sitting in the lobby with my back.
It's Chris Sutton to into it, man. You can't exactly give a wee slap for it.
No, exactly.
Touched on earlier about how you're a commentator on rugby as well. Is your preparation the same, would you say, for like football and rugby?
It's a little bit different because rugby, you get the team more than 24 hours in advance. So you can do all that side of the prep beforehand, whereas football, I write out little cards with all the information that I need on each player, and so you have to do the entire squad, including a lot of the youth players that might make an appearance. That you don't want a young guy to come on and you don't have the information he makes his debut or something like that. You know, that's a massive moment for him and for his family that might be watching. You want to get that right. So you need to, for all that in rugby, it's that team is all set. It's also a set formation. You've got 8 forwards and 7 backs, and football they move about. So I quite like to have that element that I can pick up the cards and give them to if they get subbed off, sent off, anything like that. But in the main, it's not too different. I always think that I probably use about 10-20% maybe of the stats that I do. It's always a really bad game if you're using up all your stats, because nothing's happening. That when I listen to football, unless it's a spectacular stat, notice that if I hear a commentator, particularly at the top of a before and they just reel off stat, I switch off in my mind. I don't take it in. So I've kind of learned that from my own ways, is to find a better way to summarize that beforehand. Talk about what games to a club, to a set of fans, to a certain player or whatever it is. Because I guess you're kind of learning the time as you go on. But the prep takes a long time. I could probably be a little bit more efficient with it, but I've got into my way of doing it, and kind of that's how I like doing it.
See, while we're on this subject of rugby and football, is there anything that you think that football could learn from rugby? I mean, obviously we've introduced VAR now, and that's been in rugby for a long time, where the referee can communicate. Also, I believe one thing that really annoys me about football is the way the players treat the referee. In rugby, it's just total respect. You don't see that. So things like that, do you think that could be implemented into football?
Definitely, and I put it up in commentaries a number of times. obviously, so they call it TMO, the television match official, rather than VAR. They do have it better. It still makes mistakes. But because it's been in longer, I think it's easier accepted by supporters. You're bang on about the respect for referees. It always amazes me that what some of the footballers get away with. That they just march you back 10 meters. If you do it again, you're off for 10 minutes. But I think football is, I don't know why, but football seems very reluctant or slow to learn, not just from rugby, but from all other sports. I don't know why it seems it's a protection thing, but it does seem in a way a bit set in its ways, rather than maybe moving modern times a little bit. I mean, there's a degree that you want those kind of traditions, but I mean, it took forever for VAR to. It's a million miles from perfect. There's so many things with VAR that I would want changed, because I think that they made a bit of a mess with it. But to think that the TMO's been in rugby for probably 20 years, and football is, it's maybe only 3, 4, 5 years that it's been in. They were so reluctant to do it. So there's definitely, one area that I do think they really need to learn from other sports is with head injuries, concussions. I know there's been sort of concussion substitutions and things like that, but football seems way behind other sports in that sense.
I mean, just getting back to the respect thing. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the game last night, Portugal, Spain. There was one point where Yamal was something happened, but I can't remember. It was a woman linesman, and he was screaming in her face. And I was like, that you would never get that in rugby. He's a young guy. That's obviously a learned thing. He's probably seen other people doing that, think it's acceptable. But going back to VAR, sorry, when you go.
No, I was just going to say, it's easy to clamp down on. Like they can get rid of that if they want, because you just start yellow carding players for dissent. It's so easy. But on you, yeah.
No, sorry, going back to VAR for a wee second. I totally agree with you. I like the way you use the words there, ironically. Was it's no VAR that's the problem, it's the way they run VAR. It really annoys me when people say, we need to get rid of VAR, it's not working. No, what they need to do is just make it better. It's a great idea. It helps smaller clubs against the bigger clubs at the grounds at Old Trafford. If a team's got to Old Trafford, they're up here. If it's Celtic Park or Ibrox, they're more likely to get a decision correctly. It's just, we need to implement it better. It needs to be quicker. It needs to be more efficient.
Yeah, totally agree. It needs to be a better fan experience. I think when you're in a stadium and VAR is happening and it just comes on the big screen and you're like what's going on? And we as broadcasters have that sometimes as well. I mean, I did the Spain-Scotland game at Seville when McTominay's kick was disallowed, and we get nothing. So if it's a Scottish game, if it's we get some of the VAR in our headsets, but you don't get the ref. You can only hear the VAR. Whereas rugby, you get the full conversation. The full conversation goes out to the stadium. It goes out on the broadcast, and it goes out in the stadium. So you hear the conversation, and I think then you've got a bit more acceptance of how they've come to a decision, because you can hear their thinking rather than it coming up and going offside. And I'm going, hang on a second, like, what angle are you taking? In broadcasting, if you take a super slow camera, it's got maybe 150, 200 frames per second. So if you're showing when the pass is made, which frame are you taking? Because you could probably find some I think the ball's actually released there. I think he's made the pass in that frame and he's onside. If you move it 2 or 3 frames on, and you're talking such fine margins. For me, the players. So this would be my thing with VAR. The players can't judge inches, centimeters, millimeters when they're running and they're trying to hold a line. So I don't think that officials should be able to freeze things, to put lines on them, to show replay after replay after replay. That's not clear and obvious in it. I think if you say to linesman, if you're not sure, we'll give you another look with the perfect angle, with the 18-yard camera, whatever that is. We'll give you, let's say, 2 looks at it again in real time, and you make the decision. I mean, what a bonus for a linesman! That's an absolute dream. You know when the pass is going to be made. You know which runner to look at, rather than along the line. It's a difficult job to be judging inches. If you just get to see that again with the right camera angle, knowing when the pass is going to be played, and you can make your decision in a real-time basis, then to me, like, I'm willing even then to accept if there's mistakes. But this whole drawing a line from the guy's armpit down, it's like, he didn't score with his armpit, he knocked it in with his right foot. So judge that.
I'm just going to say, like, sometimes it feels like the referees don't want to make a decision. It's like, sorry, it's going to go with is like they're just using that as more a safety net. But like you said, like, sometimes it can be 5-6 minutes, and it's not clear and obvious. You should just let the game flow on. But it's like let's see another angle, but it's not going to change. If it's not that clear and obvious, then it should get played on. But it seems up here it's more using it more often just for the sake of using it, I think. More than anything.
Yeah, and I think because when it first came in, it was in England, was it for a year before we got it?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was bonkers. They were just going to VAR for absolutely everything. Whereas I think now it's definitely diluted its influence quite a bit. I think here we're still sort of in that phase where I don't know, but I get the impression that the officials know that it's there, and therefore they have to be absolutely perfect. But it's not a perfect sport. So, you know, there's always going to be controversies. We actually, with TAE, when we're doing English Premier League games, you get an invite every month. They do a huge Zoom call with. There's about 150 people on it, and it's usually hosted by a referee, and they'll take you through the most contentious decisions. It's broadcasters, it's journalists, and a referee hosting it, and they explain their way through, and they'll play the audio exchange between the referee and the VAR, and this whole insight into how they come to a decision, and quite often it's a referee that knows that he's made a mistake, and he'll explain why he got that wrong, but give an insight into how he came to the conclusion, even though it was wrong. And there's a lot of sort of honesty with it. I think it's a really good process that they do, and it's made me understand the VAR and the positions that the officials have a lot better as well.
Why can officials not come out? Obviously, I know they don't allow it, but they should allow officials to come out after the match and just say it to the media.
I mean, they did it for a bit. I'm sure it was a time when I'd seen a referee's decision. I mean, I guess that they feel that there's just a bit of a potential to be set upon and criticised for their mistakes. To me, I think it would probably help. I think people often forget, and they do it with players as well, but you forget that there's a human side to things, and I think people see an honesty and get an explanation for a decision. And I think more would, not everyone would, but I think more would be accepting.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, if they come out with "this is my logic," you can probably pick holes of the logic. But if they've got "this is why I thought it," you can just do well, you made a bit of a boom boom, but we'll just move on.
It puts to bed all the, in my opinion, stupid football fans who believe that this referee is biased or, they're against the team and that. If a referee comes out at the end of the game and just explains, look, this is what I've seen and this is what I believed at that point. Okay, I got it wrong, but, it's hard to judge something with a naked eye. That's why we've got VAR.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult job, and you can watch them over and over again, and on these super slow cameras and high definition and all this kind of thing, and you'll still get a difference of opinion in the same room. So I think that's fair, and you know, I know it from my side of things as a commentator, and you're always get people guessing, accusing the team that you support. You want to do every broadcast correctly, as honestly and as professionally as possible, whether it's your team playing or not. And I wouldn't the difference between that and a referee. That must be the most sinking feeling. I know, like I've done it a few times where you maybe you player's name wrong at a key moment or something like that, and it's such a horrible feeling. And I can imagine it's the same for a referee as he's driving home, just that sinking feeling of second guessing yourself. Did I get that right? Because you're professionals at the end of the day, and you're not going to get to where you are if it's the top of the game as the referee. You're not going to get there favouring a team that you support.
Exactly. We were talking to Peter Martin about this. We had Peter Martin on the show a few weeks ago, and he was very complimentary, by the way. Just thought I'd tell you that. But
good. Known Peter for a long time. It's a good guy.
We were talking about that very subject, mate. It wasn't referees, but it was like just in the media, and he was saying, you do get flag waivers and stuff like that. But what we were saying was, well, why would you even get involved in the media then if you're just going to be biased? What's the point in that? You may as well. You're a professional there to do your job, aren't you? And I don't really know anybody that I think in the media that I can say, oh, they're totally biased without them being honest. Like Chris Sutton is a Celtic fan, he'll all be honest about it. But he's no. If Chris Sutton sees something wrong with Celtic, he says it.
Right. Yeah, and also I've always found, although he'll often do it as a bit of a wind up, he can be cheeky with it. He knows what he's doing. He loves all that kind. But also when he might be criticising Rangers, but Rangers fans won't like it. But if they actually listen to the words that he's saying, it's generally pretty accurate. But I kind of say that to a lot of because the pundits often brought in, because they're ex-Rangers, ex-Celtic, ex-Aberdeen, whatever that is. But I think for them to hold the credibility is to not just be, as you say, flag waivers for the team that they played. I think you need to give an honest assessment, and Chris is really good for that. If he sees a decision that's gone for Celtic, he will call it. And I try and I encourage them all, because at the end of the day, if you just shoehorn yourself into one team, you're only going to ever work on that team. So if you can sort of voice that covers all, then you're going to get 3 times the amount of work.
Do you know what I'd find really difficult in your position though, is the fact that when you're watching the game, you as the main commentator, you don't really give your opinion on things. Obviously the co-commentator can say that's a penalty, that's not a penalty. That's a wrong decision or not. Whereas a guy like you, I mean, that must be really difficult actually.
Yeah, so I guess then you're totally right. I try as much as I can, even though sometimes you're getting a wee bit emotional. I try to keep it as, like, my job is more sort of description and factual. So if say something like that happened and I like this is a stonewall penalty, but they're saying no, it's not, then the only way that I could maybe do that without giving my opinion in it, I'm always quite careful, because otherwise you can just get into a sort of tit for tat argument, and you almost forget that you're on air. So this isn't helpful to us. But if you say, well, what's the referee seen there? So if it's a red card, I know that referees have to look for, is he denying a clear goal scoring opportunity? And you go, right, that's yes or no. Is it violent conduct? Is it excessive speed or force in the tackle? If he can tick one of those boxes, then it's a red card. So if I think that somebody's flown in knee high, or endangering an opponent, that's the other one, knee high, that speed, and the co-commentator said, no, I think that's yellow. Well, I can turn round and say, well, is there excessive speed or force in the tackle? And they go, oh, I'm not sure. Well, is he potentially endangering an opponent? And if they go, yeah, potentially, then you say, well, that's the box ticked, and they only need to do one. So I guess if you've got an opinion, you've got to back it up with a fact and try and do it from the referee's viewpoint. But then I suppose you've got to have a really good knowledge of the rules, which I try my best to. It's amazing sometimes the players, the ex-players, don't.
It's chopping, changing every now and then, and the rules, like you're saying, with the VAR and the offside and stuff like that, they're constantly changing the rules.
Yeah. I mean, always changing. And I think it was a couple of years ago. I think the SFA got a few guys in to do like a refereeing course and explaining all those new rules and how they're dealt with. And you know, they do a test at the end, and I went through. I wasn't on the course with the SFA, but I saw some of the ones afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, I've been doing well to get over 50% on what the rulings are on these."
Just going back to your career now, you've commented in such big moments in Scottish football. What moment sticks with you the most, you think?
I think, I mean, this changes all the time with me. I think to look back, I think the last couple of moments or last couple of minutes in Oslo, when Scotland won out there 2-1, was, I mean, it was such a bad game. It was a game that really should have been 0-0. It was awful. They got such a just non-penalty. And then for the last couple of minutes, the way that they played out was just, when football surprises you, it's magic. And sort of smash and grab away win is just so special. I had a lot of mates out there as well, and I'd been in Oslo the last time that we'd played and got absolutely destroyed. And Scotland had been terrible. So yeah, at that point it's difficult not to be the fan. But I think you can maybe get away with it a little bit more on Scotland games, because that's your entire audience kind of wants Scotland to win as well. So I think a little more of leeway with that. So I loved that whole campaign. You know, if the Euros had been that summer, I think we'd have been right up there. But sadly, it came a year too late, and then we never really sort of recaptured that form of beating Norway away, and Spain at home was unbelievable. I mean, played them off the park. So I think, yeah, commentating on Scotland has got to be a major highlight. In a Europa League final was incredible. To do a major European final, I didn't really think that a Scottish team would go back to one. Just the way that finance drives, you know, European football these days, I didn't think it was possible. So that whole campaign was amazing. And you know what? Like I say, it changes all the time, because you know, you get to do. I mean, that was amazing. A few weeks ago, Aberdeen breaking a duck in the Scottish Cup, and a lot of friends are Aberdeen fans, and you put yourself in their shoes. Yeah, I'd have loved to have done. That got taken by Amazon, so TNT couldn't do it. But I did Celtic in the to do them in a knockout game in the Champions League. It was, you know, they're all sort of markers that are a great hit in your career, and you know, you just hope that you sort of you do those moments justice enough that you might get a chance to get on another wee run. So,
is there a specific club that you can think of that, you know, are kind of extra special, as in, you know, the hospitality they give you and stuff like that, or anything, you know, the way they treat you?
Absolutely, hands down, Ross County. So I did during COVID. I did 2 seasons up in Dingwall with Ross County TV. So me and Stephen Craigan and Michael Stewart would all go up every other week to Dingwall, and Roy McGregor. It was the first phone call that I got in that COVID summer when all the football shut down. Couldn't see out my BT contract, and you know, you're maybe 4 months with no work. First phone call that I got was Roy McGregor, and he sort of said, "Look, I'd like to recreate as close as possible what BT Sport were doing, and we'd like to do that with Ross County TV. So we want to get the best people in and try and do it on a small budget." But you know, Roy was absolutely brilliant for looking after us. You know, you always put up in a hotel, made sure you're comfortable, and everyone at the club was great. The security guy, the groundsman, everyone, and even now when I go up, you know, it takes you half an hour to the gantry because the number of people that you'll stop, and Stephen Ferguson will come and say hi, and Don Cowie will check in, and quite often it's not discussed. It's more of a see how you're getting on. Uncle Roy's always good for a game of golf as well, like Stuart and things like that. So you keep in his good book. He's a good man.
What do you think of Scottish football commentary as a whole? Do you think it gets the respect that it probably does deserve?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I try to sort of not listen to much outside noise when it comes to my job, because I think it can. There's certainly been times where it's affected how I would then perform in my job if you listen to too much on social media. So I think it's important to tune out of it and know when you've a good game or a bad game or a bad moment, and it's a lot easier to deal with that yourself rather than being told by somebody else that they think you've done on purpose and things like that. So, so given the respect, I guess so. Do you mean it just from a commentary point of view, or Scottish football as a whole?
Oh yeah, I was just meaning like the commentary, like in the wider football world. Do I think it gets?
Yeah, I think we've got there's some great broadcasters. I mean, Ian Crocker's been the voice of Sky and Setanta before that for Scottish league football for, well, this will be for, you know, not be far off 30 years. I think it was the late 90s that Crooks came in, and you know, top class broadcaster. You know, Dave was a big part of BT and ESPN. Liam McLeod's, you know, got an iconic voice as well for BBC, and loads of guys coming through as well, like Al Lamont, Jim Lyle is really good, particularly with the rugby as well. So, no, I think we're in a good place. Commentators, they'll always get stick, and they'll always get praise. It's a very, very personal thing. So like I say, I try and focus on myself, and I know if I've done something right or wrong, and you know, if you make a mistake, you naturally do sort of beat yourself up about it. But if you make it for reasons, then you can only say what comes out your mouth, like what your eyes see and what your mouth says. Like I said before, about like with the referee, who wants to make a mistake, like you want to get it right, and so I guess there's ways of, you're always going to make mistakes. I do it probably in every game, but ways of dealing with it. And you hope that you don't do it in the really big moments that then that kind of tarnishes it a wee bit.
You mentioned a few minutes ago, mate, that you're a Scotland fan. Obviously, you had to be neutral in these games and stuff as much as you can anyway. But What's your thoughts on the current Scotland squad? And I think it was 3-0 tonight, was it? I don't know. That was the last I checked. But do you think that Steve Clarke should go? I know he's under a lot of pressure, but do you think he's the right man to take us forward?
Yeah, I mean, when Steve took the job, I absolutely thought right man for it, and the timing was right, and all that kind of thing. And what he's done has been to take us to 2 European Championships back to back when we hadn't been at a major tournament since '98. Let's not forget about that. I think he'll be as frustrated as anyone else. Probably the last 18 months, I think, has been underwhelming from Scotland. I felt like the Euros was a really big missed opportunity, and for some reason, once we'd qualified, we really struggled to hit those heights, and we looked a shadow of the team that, as I mentioned before, won in Norway and beat Spain, and went toe to toe with them in Seville as well. Proper that beat Georgia easily at Hampden. And remember the monsoon game? That was an interesting one to commentate on, and that's, I think, what I found quite frustrating. I was over at the Euros and seeing that Georgia did pretty well, and they were quite attacking, and they were a real threat to teams. And I really didn't feel that we were. So I think a bit of a missed opportunity there. And that, I think that would be the main concern, is that it's gone on for quite a long time of them not hitting that peak. You know, probably from, I know they lost the game, but I thought they were really good in that game in Spain. And really since then, had there been a performance that would maybe stand out and you would say, yeah, that's a good performance. Switzerland, we did all right at the Euros against. They're a good side, but you're picking out little bits here. I think Steve he'll be desperate for them to improve, as we all are, and working out where those problems lie. So I'll dance around your question, because I don't like it's such an easy thing that we get into, when it's the nature of football and it's the nature of management that people talk about managers and their jobs and whether they still be. But I think that would be my place. I think you've got a place as a fan to talk about it, but as a commentator, it's probably something that will allow other people to kind of make that comment.
Well, the thing is that I'm a Steve Clarke fan. I think he's a good manager. He's proven all the years as a very good coach, obviously at Chelsea. Done a really good job at Kilmarnock. That's why he got the job. But what my problem with him is at the moment is, obviously, as you say, he did do a good job in the last few years, getting us to the Euros. But see, when we get to these tournaments, you mentioned the Switzerland game there, he was happy with a draw in the end, and that really annoys me. That we should have, who are Switzerland? We should have definitely went out and try and got a goal against them. Same way against Hungary, it was just too negative. And I think he's the sort of coach that needs to be working with the players day in, day out, to get the best of them. Look at Kilmarnock, they were defensively solid. Because he was working with him, and they ended up finishing third, and that's just my opinion. But I think it is time for a change, to be honest.
I think it's also what's an important thing, because you never know what's going on behind the scenes. All we see is the 90 minutes on the pitch. So,
yeah,
if the players are happy, then that's a massive telling point. I think what we've seen under Steve Clarke that we didn't always see before is you never see these like easy call-offs. They're Liechtenstein right now in June in a friendly, when everyone's season's been finished for 2 or 3 weeks. You've got your Andy Robertsons, your top line players that play for massive clubs. They're all still with the squad. So there's that. I think is always a good sign that the behind the scenes are in a good place, and I think they've had that with Steve.
I think I've got loads of respect for him, but I just think, you know, the way I see it is if you're an Andy Robertson or if you're a Callum McGregor who was there at the time and John McGinn and that, these are guys who are in their actual clubs, especially up here. You know, they're constantly on the ball, they're constantly attacking, they're constantly got most of the possession. Whereas when you go and play for Scotland, Steve Clark's got this philosophy where you sit behind the ball, you try and defend, and you try and grab a wee 1-0 win in that. And I don't think you get the best out of the players in that. And that's not just Steve Clark, by the way. This has gone back, in my opinion, to like Gordon Strachan. Remember, Gordon Strachan was saying the players are too small, and But if you're a player and you hear that kind of thing, you start to believe it. In my opinion. But I would like a manager to come in and just say, okay, we aren't the greatest nation in the world, but we can beat Hungary, we can beat Switzerland, we can beat Iceland.
Yeah, and I think we saw the Nations League. We were actually really good, made a good account of ourselves, and I think a lot of that came off the back of the Euros and that feeling that we hadn't attacking enough. Not that we should be a gung ho side, but the inclusion of Ben Doak and now he's injured, that make a really big difference because even if you were to turn around and say, well, you can't rely on one guy, there aren't a flux of red hot wingers coming through that are gonna make that difference. So we've been a bit unlucky with Ben Doak's injuries, and he would have been in that Euro squad as well if it wasn't for injuries. So that's had an impact for sure. It would be lovely to have a number 9 who's banging in 40 goals a season, but that's kind of that's the area that we don't really have at the moment. But if Scott McTominay was scoring a good few in Serie, so get him into the box more often. Yeah.
You see him with the celebrations in Napoli?
Oh,
had the
that was absolutely magic.
Cigarettes in the beer, and he's every 40-year-old Scottish dad on holiday.
Sorry, on you go.
What a place like Naples must have just been a party for it. Probably still, to be honest.
Definitely.
I'd love to be a part of that. Yeah.
Definitely. Right, Rory. This is the first time we're actually going to do this. I've got a wee quiz for you, mate. It's just about some of the games. Just some of the games you've commentated on. Sorry.
Okay.
See how we'll test your memory. We'll go start for like the most recent, and then we'll go from the furthest back. So, is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, mate. This one, I'll be very disappointed if you don't get this because this is like extremely recent. So 7th of June, Saturday there, you commentated Leinster against Glasgow Warriors, which I sat and watched. What was the score?
Oh, no. I don't know. What was the score? I don't know. 43-19.
37-19, close, mate.
Oh.
It's not too bad.
I remember there was at one stage Leicester scored 30 points. There was 68 minutes and Leinster scored 38 points with no reply. Scored like after 4 minutes and then at like 72. And so the rest of the time it was all just Leinster's.
They were good actually. Like I say, I'm not a big rugby fan, but I did watch that game because I knew you were coming on. But right, mate. 9th of February 2025, Queen's Park beat Rangers 1-0 to reach the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. You'd used a line at the very end, so I want you to finish the line for me. Rangers have fallen into.
A spider's web or something like that.
Correct. The spider's web.
Excellent. I thought you were going to ask for the goal scorer, and I can't remember his name because all I'd remembered was that I had no idea how you pronounce it.
Aye. Is it DOIZ or something? It's like a weird. Right, you mentioned this earlier, so you should get this one actually as well. 17th of June 2023, Norway played Scotland in that 2-1 victory for us. For the Norway goal, the penalty, who gave away the penalty and get yellow carded?
Portis.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
We were going through these, and I said every other defender apart from Portis, and I'm like, that's the most obvious.
Yeah, that is the obvious one.
21st of May 2022, Rangers defeated Hearts 2-0 in the Scottish Cup final. Who scored Rangers' first goal?
I think is it Ryan?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Oh,
well done, mate.
I don't know where that's come from, but yeah.
I've got one more, and then Corey's got one, mate. Right, so 7th of November 2019.
Oh, that's my birthday.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
7th of November 2019, and Cham scored a late winner for Celtic against Lazio in Rome. Finished the line, and Cham to win the game. And Cham to win the game for Celtic. What was the next line? As the ball went into the back of the net.
Don't know, because I had a few from that game, but I don't know that that's the ball hitting the net. And
but
do you know what? I've got that in mind.
You over Chris Sutton shouting, but he did hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Yeah. Oh, was he? I know it was after that, but it was Olivier and Cham head over heels in the Olympico. But I think you're gone before that. Celtic.
Aye, that was after it.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell me.
He's only gone and done it.
Okay.
Sutton doing his
that.
best Gary Neville impression as well. I remember that.
I had to hold him back. He was ready to come down to the stadium.
He was ready for going on the pitch.
He's still connected, all his headset and
stuff. Mine was doing my bit of research. The first game you've done a bit of commentary was a game of rugby. Can you remember the two teams that were playing and the score?
It was Edinburgh Connacht, and I don't know the score. It was like a record-breaking score. It was something like 83-10 or 73-10, something like that. Edinburgh.
62-13. But
that wasn't too bad.
That's decent. That was
very good.
That's a long time ago.
Last question, mate, before we let you go. Thanks very much for your time. What is your plans for the future, mate?
I mean, good question. I don't know. So much depends on broadcasting rights, and they're out of your control. So I mean, at the moment, I'm pretty happy with what I've got. It would be. I'd love to go to the World Cup. I think would be major, but a lot of that might depend on Scotland getting to a World Cup, because it's easier to put a Scottish voice on when Scotland are there. But that would be sort of quite a high ambition. But career isn't. I love it. It's great, but there's other things that are important in life as well. So I don't know. I'll see what happens. Go with where the wind takes me, and I'll have a microphone in my pocket, and I'll shout some names out.
When's the next game you're doing? Are you going on a wee holiday now, or what's happening?
No, next game's Saturday. Back to Dublin, so to do the final, Leinster against the South African team. So a bit of study on that this week, and I've just done Leinster, so I know them pretty well. The Bulls I did before, they knocked out Edinburgh and Pretoria, so so a bit on that, and then I'm flying from Dublin to go on holiday, so days, and then you know what? It's the Premier Sports Group stages before you know it. You're right back into it, and European qualifiers, friendlies and things like that. So yeah, straight back into things.
Thick and fast, mate. But as you say, you love it. So, Rory, thanks very much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. You're the top commentator in this country, as far as I'm concerned. All the best for the future, mate, and I hope you have a fantastic holiday.
Oh, much appreciated. Thank you. Good to have you on. Thank you.
No bother. Thank you. Cheers, Rory.
Cheers.
Bye.